The passing landscape created a constant blur of vibrant green pastels with occasional smudges of brown. Never in my life I encountered so much of one color in a single place. Soothing greens covered the earth from the smallest lichens on the ground to the top of the largest evergreen trees my eyes had ever seen. The landscape was smothering, and if I had ventured into it, I would have been its captive forever. It never differed, and there was no way to distinguish one mile from another. Rain had chased us over 800 miles since we left home. In the few breaks offered us, we would roll down the windows to relieve the truck of the stale scents that accumulated for hours at a time. We hurtled down the road, and I was continuously berated with smells I had never encountered before. Sweet smells, bitter smells, and the overpowering smell of pine trees mixed into a mind-numbing scent that flowed through the open windows of the truck. The air was so clean, I had never before beheld fresher air on any of my various trips out of the United States. We passed through a forest of purple flowers, and I finally beheld the road sign we had been hoping to find for 3 hours. Cincinnati, Northern Ontario, 20 kilometers. Finally, I thought, we were almost rid of this car. Oh, how my legs ached to feel the hard ground beneath them, or more so, the water. All I wanted to do was feel the snap of my rod as I set the hook into my prey. It was fishing that had brought us to Canada, and fishing is what we would eat, breathe, and sleep for the next week. No cell phones, no computers, no television. Just my rod and endless possibilities to pit myself against foes unlike any I had ever encountered before. At least that's what my father had led me to believe. A burst of energy enveloped me as my feet met the ground in the little coal mining village. This would be the last of civilization I would see in a week, and what a pitiful excuse it was. A one-horse town. My stomach churned in anticipation as I saw the boat on which we would be ferried out into the bush end. As we loaded the boat, I couldn't help but smile as I imagined what I was preparing to encounter. When the bags were packed, much to my dismay, I discovered I would not be able to accompany the rest of my party due to lack of space. While waiting, I nonchalantly retrieved the pack of tobacco and rolling papers from inside my jacket pocket. Despite the best effort of the wind, I was able to roll and light my cigarette. I lay on the back of the truck and puffed, waiting for the boat to return. As I sat, I noticed a large shadow consuming the land, and I looked up to discover a battle above me ensuing. 2 large cloud walls began to push together, and a strong wind began to blow. I couldn't imagine the havoc this may cause in my passage to camp. I heard a shout and saw the transport boat coming back into the dock, fighting the hating wind and waves that would have it smashed at a moment's notice. I ran down the dock and jumped aboard, nearly falling into the icy water below. The words of my father rang in my mind, a warning he had issued before we departed on our journey. No way out, no way in, except by boat or helicopter. In a storm, neither is possible. Get hurt or lost, and you will be lucky if you survive. The large boat was buffeted by the waves as we flew down the lake. The lake does not do this body of water justice. The boat was in the middle of a large bay, and on either side the bank was too far away to be seen, except as a large blur of green to the human eye. The ride was long and arduous, and by the end I was soaked to the bone by the pounding waves. We battled the wind into the dock, fighting tooth and nail until we had the large boat tied into submission. The bags, I discovered, had been loaded into an old blue truck and driven from sight. When I inquired as to how the truck had been brought there, I was told it had been driven over the ice many years ago. Studying my surroundings, I beheld the camp for the first time. A small bait house stood only a matter of feet from the dock, and a winding path twisted itself through the underbrush and up the hill. At the top of the hill stood 4 small log cabins and a huge lodge. I was awestruck by the lodge. It stood a story tall and was completely comprised of half logs. Without heavy machinery, I could not fathom as to how the logs had been set in place. As I climbed the hill toward the lodge, I thought of the happenings so far in the day. At the lodge, I paused and breathed in the clean air, grateful because during the climb my abused lungs had protested my every step. I had made it to where so few had stood before, and my journey had just begun. My heart beat like a hollow drum as I stood and looked out over the water before me. I finally realized my predicament. I could finally see the true size of the bay I had just come from. Try hard as I could not see the bank opposite me. I finally understood my situation. No way out except by boat or helicopter. Don't get lost. Too much wind, too much rain, and not enough progress. This combination can land you in a very tight spot very quickly. A bad decision to go fishing had put us in very real danger. We knew bad storms were coming. We knew from the bank we could not see the waves in the bay. We knew if something happened and we capsized, it could mean death by drowning or hypothermia. Did it stop us? Hell no. That had proved us being a mistake. I sat in the front of an aluminum 14-foot V-hull boat. The deep boat was made for big waves associated with the big water, but not waves this big. No, these waves were massive. The whitecaps caused by the great winds appeared as a massive pair of jaws that slashed and beat our boat, threatening to consume us. Water came in over the side, biting and snapping the warmth from our bones. We bailed as fast as our bodies would allow us, and still continued to lose ground against the great waves. I sat in the middle of the boat and bailed for dear life. The wind grabbed at the front of the boat as we sliced through a large wave and threatened to flip us over. The more we tipped, the more water raced to the back of the boat. I threw myself against the boat and proved a match for the wind. The boat slammed back into the water. I remained in the front of the boat to keep it from happening again. My change of position allowed safer maneuverability, but forced the nose of the boat deeper into the water, allowing copious amounts of water to penetrate the sides of our craft. A sudden flow of despair and insignificance rushed over me with the waves. A wordless prayer formed on my lips as I began to ask for forgiveness and peace. I prayed my companions would make it out of this alive, even if I didn't. A sudden peace did come over me, and I realized that there was time and place in which everyone might die, so why not here? For the first time ever, I was able to accept the fact that I wouldn't live forever and one day I would perish. A small smile touched my lips as the fight continued. Then, as quickly as the gale found us, it left. Only a few feet behind me, I could see the crazed waves. It took me a moment to realize what had happened. I looked and was surprised to find that we were in a small canal leading to another small lake, and that the trees on our sides were protecting us from the sharp winds. Not even the slightest breeze blew beneath the shadows of the massive forest. We sat in the boat and just looked at each other. Clothes wet, hair in disarray, and cold described our conditions. Smiles formed on all of our faces, and we began to laugh long and heartily, happily just to be alive. Several days passed without incident. I stared at the vast blanket of stars over my head. Night was so peaceful. No cars, no trains, no airplanes, and no light other than stars themselves. As I watched, I could see satellites and shooting stars. I'd never seen so many shooting stars. I couldn't help but recall all that had happened on my trip, and a pang of sadness hit me when I realized my time was over. When I departed tomorrow morning, I would be going back to the godless, greenless wasteland I call home. Here in this place I had discovered how great a gift life is, and how lucky I am to still have mine. I learned how small of a being I really am, that I really don't matter so much. Money, cars, houses, jobs, none of these will ever last. I learned that life is worth more than anything else in this world, but also that I cannot live in fear of death. When my time comes, there will be nothing I can do to stop it. So why should I live any less to try and thwart the inevitable? As each star split the sky, these thoughts are sealed into my being forever.